Hello, this is Tim at Love Change Grow, and this is for the post on February 19th. Um, and this is a follow up or post number 2 in the mental health section of the blog. So, last week I talked about wellness, and wellness specifically is eating well, sleeping well, getting good exercise. Um, Having friends that support you, a good support network, doing your passions, keeping yourself curious and learning new things, having some meaning and purpose, a sense of that in your life, and then taking care of your spiritual needs however you see fit. Whether that's going to church, fly fishing, skiing, whatever. It's a chance and a space to kind of consider and ponder the bigger issues in life and where you fit in and things. So that is wellness in a nutshell. And the other thing I alluded to is, on one hand you have wellness or health, and on the other end of the spectrum you have mental illness. Okay, and the whole idea is, when you have this sort of wellness spectrum, where you end up is dependent on, those general seven factors or seven influences. And that's an easy way to think about wellness, and it's also a way to look at and do some evaluation or critique or assessment of where things are that you could improve upon. And I might have forgotten to mention this, but the whole wellness thing is, hopefully you have a routine that works for your life, for your lifestyle, for your other involvements in life, such as work, relationships, kids, what have you, hobbies. And so the idea is, if you have a good wellness routine, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, is that in life there's some things that come along that bump you off of your routine. But if you got generally a good positive routine, that's going to help you actually have some resilience. And a good routine is really a way to think about resilience. So sometimes in life we get really knocked off of our routine. Let's say we have an auto accident, we end up being in the hospital for a couple weeks, and then we have the recovery time and the healing time. Well, that can really throw us off of our usual routine, and to get back into that routine may take a few months or quite a while. And so in the meantime, perhaps you're in pain at home, you're not sleeping well, you have no appetite, you have motivation, at least conceptually, but getting out the door, going to the grocery store is a task, let alone getting back into tennis or skiing or whatever is can be pretty depressing, and it feels depressing, and that is true. People can feel pretty depressed, or since they haven't gotten out to see people, they're kind of anxious about it, and what are my friends going to say, and all this stuff. So when you look at or think about life, having a good routine is a highly positive risk factor. And when we get bumped off of that routine, then it causes problems. You guys get that. So that's sort of the spectrum when you look at mental health and mental illness as two ends of the spectrum, and where a person lies there. And everybody's, quote, normalcy is going to be dependent on their situation, their personality, their environment, their friends, and etc. And so I've met a lot of people that have major mental illnesses, and most of the time they're doing well, operating in their sphere of influence in their environment. They get up and maybe go do their activity, volunteer, things like that. And so I just want to make sure you understand that everybody has their own sense of normalcy in their life, and if it's working well, despite you don't have to be mentally ill. Say you could be a diabetic or on dialysis, and that if you have a routine where it incorporates your dialysis and you're doing that say 3 times a week, yeah, that's a big drag. But on the other hand, you've established a routine that works well for you. Same goes with mental health. Just because a person maybe has a major mental disorder doesn't mean that their life is crap. In fact, I've known some really outstanding folks that are really productive, doing well, and because they have, in a sense, understood and accepted what that mental illness is, potentially a bump in the road, but they've learned how to manage that well so that it's not a hindrance, and in some cases ends up being an inspiration, a motivation to live their life well. So the next piece is generally in mental health, in the mental health system, there's 3 treatment prongs. And most everybody knows about medications and stuff like that. That, you go to the doc, you see your psychiatrist or your primary care physician, you get some antidepressants and anxieties and things, and the medication is the piece of it. Here's the thing about the medication piece, is that the issue is, what is your quality of life on medications versus off medications? And that quality of life issue and discussion is only you can really determine that. And you got to be aware of what are the benefits, what are the risks, the short-term or temporary, or they call it transient side effects, and then there's long-term side effects and stuff. And everything has side effects. Bacon has side effects, aspirin has side effects. So in mental health, you really need to sit down and do some work and study, do your own due diligence, and take responsibility of figuring out what's the benefits, what's the risk. Ideally, you give it a try to see if it's going to work, and when you're in that trial phase, whether it's a few days, and a lot of these medications will take a while, take a few weeks to a few months to really kind of let your body get adjusted to how it's processing and all that, how your liver, whether you're gaining weight, losing weight, and other, side effects. And a side note about side effects and potential, hey, I'm feeling them kind of weird. One of the primary good resources to help you figure that out is your pharmacist. Pharmacists go to school and they learn how the body generally processes these medications that you're taking. And pharmacists are oftentimes much more knowledgeable about the side effects and how things work than your primary care physician or even a psychiatrist. So don't overlook that. Pharmacists are a great resource for information. And if you know side effects or are aware of them, then you can kind of track those. And I'll get off into the weeds here just a bit, but get a good week at a glance kind of thing, of notebook. And an easy way to do that is on each day you develop a code of plus, minus, and equal. So that way you can track mood every day. Just spend 30 seconds and write in for Sunday, hey, my mood's fine, or I'm feeling lethargic, or I have some body aches or whatever. And you can track a lot of this stuff so that the idea is when you track it, you can kind of trend it. And so how that works is you can track, say on Monday you have a car accident. You can put car accident, so that tracks, oh, I had this bump in the road, and I'm going to see the doctor in 2 weeks. Well, you're not going to remember a lot of this stuff in 2 weeks. I can't even remember, what I had for lunch, 20 minutes ago. So what this does is this week at a glance kind of thing, is it provides data. So then when you go and talk with your psychiatrist or even your pharmacist to have some questions, take this baby along. And one of the difficult things about psychiatry is a psychiatrist kind of, they have a reasonable handle on what ballpark you're playing in, whether it's a bipolar manic depression disorder or schizophrenic kind of thing, or anxiety or generalized anxiety or a PTSD kind of thing. They have a good understanding of that. However, the problem is when you go in and see a psychiatrist, you got 10, maybe 15 minutes, and the your prescriber is going to basically adjust things and understand things from what you report. And so you're there, you have 5 minutes to say basically, hey, here's how I'm doing. Well, when you bring in your data in here, you can look through it, you can show him your data, and that way he or she, your prescriber, has a lot more information, whether it's side effects, whether it's benefits, and things are working well or not. I've been in psych med evaluations with consumers countless of times, and oftentimes a person comes in and goes, well, and they base their report on how they're feeling at that moment or that day. And most of the time folks come in, they feel a little intimidated, and they go, oh yeah, I'm doing fine, sleep's okay, it's not great. And so that ends up being their presentation. Well, the doc doesn't really have much to respond to, or they don't have enough information to really be able to tweak those medications and adjust them, or go, oh my gosh, no, this medication isn't working well, let's transition you off this medication. They call it tapering down a medication, and let's bring up this other medication that may work better. So I think that gives you an idea about the first treatment prong, medications. The second treatment prong is good old counseling. And counseling can be in the form of case management, or a therapist, a licensed professional kind of person. And generally, these days, with counseling, there's really kind of two classes. One is skills development. Hold on a second. One is skills development, and that can be anything from communication with your friends, your partner, your family. It could be budgeting. It could be stress management, how to work with your life so you eliminate stress. It could be decision making. It could be budgeting, and it's all kind of life skills management, which we all need. None of us really come in with great skills management kind of things. We learn those and pick those up over time, and if something, or perhaps a poor childhood, sometimes we don't get those skills, and generally the skills are relatively easy to learn. We just haven't thought about them. And later in my blog, I'll do a bunch of that kind of stuff on how to figure out like decision making and stuff. And so on the other side of the counseling piece is what we call insight. And generally, that mode of operation is the person comes in, talks to their therapist, and the therapist really, when you look at it, all they're doing is asking questions. And the idea is you ask the founding piece is in counseling. The idea is the person has the answers inside, but they're not able to get them outside. So by asking good questions, then the client expresses how they're feeling and stuff like, or what they're thinking, and the counselor goes, well, how do you feel about that? Or what do you think about that? And so by getting it out there, then the client and the therapist are able to see, oh, here it is. And when a person talks about their feelings and their thoughts and it's out there, then you sort of are able to examine those. If it's hard to have all that stuff inside and be able to look at it, and you're kind of in this soup, and it's like, oh, what is this? In the stew, is this a potato or a carrot, an onion? Oh, a piece of meat or what? But in sort of the insight mode of therapy is getting it out there so you can take a look at it and you can go, oh, this isn't this is the thing that's not working. And then the therapist asks, well, what do you want to do about it? And so then, you're able to come to an idea of, hey, this is what's going to work well for me, and how to incorporate that into the third treatment prong in mental health, which is basically wellness. And historically, wellness was not really considered as a treatment prong, and it's only been probably in the past 15, 20 years that it's kind of risen to prominence. And now, all over the internet, and everybody's talking about wellness, and folks are now talking about resilience. And for a while I was scratching my head going, well, what is this resilience? Well, in a sense, part of resilience is wellness, is having a good routine, having a good solid foundation of support, so when a little piece gets knocked off, you just don't crumble all over the place. Yeah, you might have a bad day, you might get sick for a week, but for the most part, your wellness routine supports you to get back on your feet, and pretty much most people don't need much other than working their wellness routine, keeping their routine going that day, that week, that month. And so those were so we have wellness. We have wellness on the spectrum. We have the three treatment prongs of medications, and it's really important to know what you're taking, what the side effects, what the benefits are, and the issue is your quality of life on medications versus off medications, the side effects versus the benefits. Then you have counseling, which is basically skills development and insight. And then you have the wellness routine. So the next piece, which all kind of sets some of the ground of where we're going to jump off into. The third piece I'd like to mention is in my project here, in the Love Change Grow project, I really thought I wanted to get into high-end coaching kind of thing, because it looked like, oh my gosh, people are making tons of money and stuff like that. Though after talking with folks, attorneys and insurance and things like that, I can do counseling because I'm licensed for that. But if I did coaching or consulting, I have to practice at a level of counseling. And because I have the licensure and I've had the experience and practiced at a high level, I can't try to practice at a lower level because I would know better. So that has led me into this impetus of a project of just putting information out there. So at this point in time, and I'll get into this other stuff later, perhaps, but at this point, basically, we have coaching has exploded, and it's so I want to just point out the differences between coaching, consulting, and counseling. And so basically, I'll start with counseling. Counseling is a person has to be have a degree, have so many clinical hours, have clinical supervision hours, and experience. And so, when you get into a master's or a PhD, and then you need 2,000 hours of clinical experience, and then you need 100 or 200 hours of clinical supervision, that gets to be really, and then, you have to sit for the exam to get licensed. And so that ends up being a very expensive kind of entry level for both the professional and subsequently the client has to be able to afford that level, because it costs quite a bit of money and time to get to that level. And so what ends up happening, it gets to be expensive and not very available to most folks, certainly, and then there's without being relatively well off. And the other piece is insurance. If I were to go into private practice, for the most part, and take insurance, I have to get cleared or accredited, approved through various insurance companies so that I can bill. So if you are a client coming in with insurance, there's certain standards I have to do. And so part of those is, I have to do an intake evaluation. I have to come up with basically a diagnosis or a working diagnosis, and then do a treatment plan, have you sign off on all this stuff, and to engage and actually start into the therapy mode. So for the most part, that's going to take probably a 90-minute interview, initial intake interview, and then me doing a bunch of the paperwork, you agreeing, hey, this is what we're working on, and all that. So that counseling, the mental health counseling end is fairly regulated, and so it protects both the client and the provider, the counselor. And so it ends up being rather expensive. And again, a lot of times it's like you come in and say, hey, this is what's going on, here's what I want to do and want to figure out, here's what I need help with. So moving on to coaching. Coaching, there's a lot of people out there that are coaches nowadays, and there's a lot of great coaches out there. But coaching is basically a unregulated industry. And so, there's minimal protection for the client and expectations. So it's some coaches, basically coaches are, they have some experience personally, or they've done some business kind of things or real estate or whatever, and they're helping people, and it's more of, hey, here's some nuts and bolts of how to do this, here's the strategy, and I'm going to give you a pep talk. I'm going to say, hey, you can do this, we can figure this out. One of the tail signs of coaching is, hey, here, what is your goal? So you have a scoreboard. And so a lot of times in coaching, it's all about the numbers. It's all about, hey, this is your target, this is where you want to be, you want to make so much money, or you want to have so many connections, or this kind of email list, with 1,000 subscribers. That's the goal. So I'm going to help you get there. And that's a lot of coaching is about how to make things happen, and it's a good thing, if folks want that. And the whole part of coaching for the client is you got to have some clear goals. You kind of have to go, okay, I'm in this, I'm going to make this happen, this is who I am. So there's some self-awareness there, and some motivation and some drive. And so you're just asking somebody that has a little more experience in that sphere of business or sphere of relationships or whatever to help you out, to get you to that goal, to get that number on the scoreboard. And then there's consulting. And consulting is basically where you're really quite self-aware, aware of your plan, aware of what you want to do, and you're checking in with a person that has some expertise, and because of their expertise, their time and education and stuff, you're saying, hey, here's my plan. Take a look at it. Here's some of the issues that I don't know and I may need some help about. Here it is. Tell me what you think, and tell me which direction should I go. And so that's consulting. So I know in Love, Change, Grow endeavor, I had to really wrestle with some of this. And where I've ended up at is doing none of it. I'm not going to be a consultant. I'm not going to be a counselor or a coach. But it was a good process to go through, because what I am going to be is doing just education and information. I think that is a lot of times most folks don't need the level of service that counseling provides. They just need to have a little more information and they can figure it out themselves. So that's what I'm doing here. So you got coaching, consulting, and counseling. So I want to finish this up. I think it's getting a bit long. We're coming up on 30 minutes. So the other thing is how to find a professional. If you need a coach, a consultant, and particularly a counselor. And one way to think about that is this. Hold on. And that is to, I know people are going to be perhaps horrified by this, but you can think of counseling and finding a professional, whether it's a consultant or a coach, we're like used car salesmen or salespeople. And it's a trick to find a person that you click with, have some chemistry with, and you can deal with their personality or however, and they have the car that you want to buy at the price you can afford. So a lot of times you can find, here's a great car, but I can't afford the price. Or here's a car that's going to work for me, but I just can't handle this guy's personality, this salesperson's personality and how they're going about it and stuff. I want to find somebody that's honest and straightforward, has some integrity. Yeah, I don't mind paying, some money, realizing they have to make a living, have to pay bills and stuff like that. But I certainly don't want to get taken advantage of. So it can be a real trick at times to find a person that has the car that you want to buy at an affordable price. And so part of that is you got to figure out your needs versus your wants. Now, we all may want a, say $100,000 electric truck, but do we need that $100,000 electric truck? No, we just need a truck that can haul some trash and yard waste to the, recycle place or to the dump. So there's a big extreme. You could find maybe a $500 pickup that's going to get your trash to the dump, and haul some firewood, haul some yard waste around and things like that. And you don't need a $100,000 truck. So that's part of figuring out when you're entering into coaching or counseling or finding a consultant is what do you need versus what do you want? And of course, the need versus want is all on a spectrum. And so it's going to be a compromise. Well, where are you willing to compromise? What are you willing to sacrifice? And what's your bare minimum need? And what's your, magic wand kind of thing? So, I think for the most part that about does it for today, and I look forward to doing more of this mental health stuff. I'd appreciate if you want to put in your comments. I will read the comments, and if you have ideas of various mental health topics and things like that you'll are just wondering about, I'm happy to answer them if I can. If I can't, I will try to point you in a direction where you might be able to find some answers. One last bit is the reason why I'm doing this in this format of education and information is that I could provide the same thing on a one-to-one kind of thing, and on a one-to-one in a counseling kind of role or consultant role, I could do the same thing, but it would be tailored to your individual situation and need. But with that comes an expense, a regulatory thing, and a whole bunch of work that is great work, it would be your work and your process specifically tailored to your situation. But I feel a lot of people, because of where we are now, socially, culturally, there's a high demand for mental health, but there's not a lot of practitioners. There's certainly not all that many folks that have had a lot of experience and that are accessible, that are affordable. So that's how I guess I've chosen to kind of contribute to this large gap of lacking in mental health. So thank you, and stay tuned. All right, bye.